So I think we're a couple of minutes in now, and I think it makes sense not to lose too much time. Will people continue to see that lobby message pop up on everybody's screen? Okay, so, but my part is short anyway. So to those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name's James Diamond. I'm manager in the federal government in Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and co-chair of the Oil and Gas Subcommittee of the Global Methane Initiative. This meeting today is the second in a series of several that we hope to put on over the coming months. With the unfortunate prevention of the Global Methane Forum last year, we realized that we had an opportunity to try to reach out to an even broader audience and bring together some of the presenters and more people that are engaged in methane management in the oil and gas sector. Today's session, I think, is a nice build on what we talked about in the last session, where we looked at quantification and issues around numbers. So today we're going to talk about emissions mitigation, technology, and innovation with a couple of presentations and an overview from the Methane Emissions Leadership Alliance. In terms of where we are and how we'll manage this, it sounds pretty good so far, but I'd remind everybody to please mute your microphone unless you need to intervene. You can raise your hand and use the chat function to start provoking discussion and questions throughout the period of the day, of the hour. But we'll definitely have some space at the end of this presentation for more discussion and answer questions. In terms of how things look today, so my brief time is about finished right now. We'll hand it over to Jackson Hegland to give an introduction on what's happening with the Methane Emissions Leadership Alliance, and then turn it on to two technology solution providers to give us some in-depth overview of what's going on with some solutions that are being actively implemented right now. We'll save some time at the end for questions, and then I'll come back at the end just to wrap it up and demonstrate kind of where we're going and invite you to future meetings. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jackson right now. Jackson has been working with us in Canada, at least with our, I don't know, 5-6 year process right now in a regulatory world, intervening from a government perspective nationally, and then subnational active provinces in Canada, in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan. So methane emissions interventions significant from a regulatory perspective, and the Methane Emissions Leadership Alliance brought together solution providers to help us understand where that makes sense and offer advice and now offer solutions to companies as they're trying to meet those requirements. So Jackson, if you want to pick up the control of the presentation, I'll hand it off to you. And
you bet. Thanks a lot, James. Thanks so much for having us here today with the opportunity to sit in and contribute to this webinar today. Thanks everyone for joining. It looks like we've got a great range of folks here listening in. So I'll just sort of lay the groundwork prior to our two presenters this morning here. I think James gave a really good overview of at least some of the ways that our organization looks to support methane mitigation activities, whether it's through a policy or implementation. There are a few things I'll review here just to set the stage, discuss some converging factors and driving forces around methane strategic considerations as you navigate this pathway. And
looks like we lost Jackson.
Jackson, this is GMI folks. Can you hear us? Because we can't hear you. This is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Oh, okay.
I'm back now.
You're back. I hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I've been kicked out there twice. Thanks. You're probably here for one of the top three reasons as far as the pressures, the external pressures. And then the bottom three factors listed here also contribute to this pathway that we're on here as an industry, moving towards a more concerted methane mitigation activities. So each of these on their own is an issue for discussion. Always enjoyable to talk about the status of each of these, but really just, again, setting the stage. So why methane? Why is it important to be managing, notwithstanding those converging factors? There's four additional pieces here listed that you can take a look through. And as you go from left to right here, I think at the end, what's largely meant by employee habits is building resilient business practices. And that's as policy and regulation evolves, as investor demands evolve, implementing the cost of carbon and methane mitigation considerations into your activities and business development plans is something that will build those resilient practices. So where do you start, really, and what are the primary strategic considerations? Well, in our eyes, there's really three primary strategic considerations. First, of course, is building out the governance structure within your organization. And something I think most folks realize quite quickly when they get into methane mitigation is the requirement around strong data systems. Spreadsheets will only take you so far, for example, but also as far as data collection and individuals involved and understanding where the information is coming from and how to collect it on an ongoing basis is really critical in order to meet any targets or KPIs that you set as an organization, and certainly as you build out your reporting requirements into regulators and government as required. And then the two primary pieces there that James had mentioned, the previous webinar addressed one of them, the emissions quantification piece, and building an equipment inventory. At that point, you're really able to build out a strong assessment of the project types that you want to. And here's a few examples, something that there's a multitude, of course, and a couple of these categories in particular are rather generic, but these are the areas that folks can look at here in the immediate to find some opportunities for solutions. And as far as the rest of our organization goes, these are members that fit within each of those 6 buckets identified on the previous slide. We've got 2 of them here today and many of them on the line participating today as well. So to start off, we will go to Calscan Solutions and managing partner Henri Tessier. They've developed 2 products that measure and reduce air emissions and for the oil and gas industry. I think maybe I'll leave it at that, and Henri, you can take it from here.
Thanks, Jackson, for the introduction. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Before we begin, I'd also like to thank everyone from GMI Oil and Gas Subcommittee on inviting Calscan Solutions to this webinar. Calscan has been designing and manufacturing measurement and controls equipment for the oil and gas industry for over 20 years at our facility here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And we also have offices in Calgary and Houston, Texas. We have engineered and manufactured downhole tools, far left corner, low power standalone data loggers, gas flow computers with differential pressure sensors using AGA calculators, and gas turbine flow computer. We also get into a little bit of low flow measurement with our thermal gas casing vent measurement for SAGD applications. And our Hawk vent gas meter was used a lot for vent testing on compressor seals, pneumatic devices, tank venting, and service casing vents. And our bare solar power electric actuators for replacing pneumatic devices on well sites venting fuel gas. for reducing methane emissions. We have used these linear and quarter turn actuators on portable separator skids on well sites for oil and gas separators. So today we'll primarily be discussing our Hawk vent gas meter for direct measurement on vents like tanks and compressor seals. And also we'll be touching on our electric controls, our linear actuator, and our quarter turn actuators for replacing pneumatic devices. Start off with a little bit of measurement with our Hawk 9000 vent gas meter. Again, used on compressor seals here in Canada a lot and pneumatic devices, tanks, and service casing vents. Some of the advantages of the Hawk vent gas meter. So when you're looking at doing vent gas measurement, one of the biggest part, what you got to really be careful is with your back pressure. So it's critical for vent gas measurement that you don't create any kind of back pressure. So our back pressure on our Hawk meter is less than 2 inches of water column at a high flow rate of 250 standard cubic feet per hour. So when we get down to low flow rates, we can it gets really low on half an inch of water column on differential pressure. Rangeability on this meter pretty well starts at around that 0.014 to about 170 actual cubic meters per day. Your total flow accuracy, we can get down to about plus or minus 2%. We do very high accuracy. We compensate for atmospheric pressure and temperature on our Hawk flow computer, and we do the AGA 7 and 8 calculations. So we get high accuracy and high resolution on our data that we're logging. Power consumption, you don't require any kind of batteries or solar panels. We use a 3.5 volt lithium battery inside the Hawk flow computer, and that battery will last up to 2 to 3 years. So there's no extra battery required. Outdoor rating, it's rated, our electronics are all rated for minus 40 degrees C to about 60 degrees C. Hazard location, we can bring this unit anywhere into plant sites or any hazardous location. So it's certified for class 1, div 1. Operator friendly, it's very lightweight, so we can move it around pretty easy. We have a drip pot in front to just catch any kind of liquids just in case, especially off tanks or compressor seals. Reporting software, I think this is one of the biggest things that our Hawk does is we can log all that data, all that information. So the operator can configure the logging for either every second, every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds. So you can get a lot of data, and you can generate some PDF files and also some CSV files. So it's really critical, I think, on that side of things that, guys, our service companies are not just writing numbers down. They're actually getting data logging and able to send that information to the customer. And the cost available for rental or purchase at from our Empton office or our Houston office in Texas. Okay, that's our measurement side of things. We're going to start a little bit here with our reducing methane emissions, replacing pneumatic devices with Calscan's Bare electric controls, or zero emission separator, we call it. This site here was all retrofitted this summer in northern Alberta area. You can see all the solar panels that we have. There's also some electric chemical pumps that they added. So some of those solar panels are running electric chemical pumps. We've done some measurement before we did the retrofit. So average venting on these two separators was about 250 tons of CO2 a year from the pneumatic devices per separator package. So that's about equivalent to about 55 cars per year per separator package. So just this site, we were able to, about 110 cars off the roads. Okay, we'll go through some brownfield when we're doing retrofit packages. And then we'll also, next slide, we'll do some greenfield, which will be new installs. The brownfield replace pneumatic device with zero venting solar power electric controls. So here in Alberta, a big part of our replacement is carbon credits till 2028. You can get about anywhere from $25 to $30 a ton. So if you're looking at an average well site producing about 250 tons, you can get your ROI within the next, within a year to anywhere to year to 3 years. So it's a big bonus for our producers here in Alberta. Some of the things that you got to be careful with when you're looking at carbon credits, you got to check into is making sure you do the inventory of each pneumatic device. You'll have to require to measure each instrument, how much it's actually venting, and then doing some reports and audits, and then your costs on that per year. When we're working with our producers, we really look at our well site location. I think one of the biggest things is, if they have sites that they're having a lot of issues with maintenance, either wet gas, or either sour, any kind of dirty fuel gas that we're having a lot of problems with pneumatic devices. Those are ideal sites for replacement. High venting from pneumatic devices. So anything above that 0.17 cubic meters per hour is another good candidate for replacing some of your pneumatic devices. And then, from high bleed to low bleed pneumatic devices, some customers that went down to low bleed devices, especially on level control. Still, if you got lots of liquids coming in, you have a lot of dynamic activity on your valving, and you're still venting a lot of methane emissions. So something that you got to really look at. Instrumentation equipment replacement, valve replacement is a big, part of the retrofit. Here looking at pictures on the far right, top, before and after on our back pressure control valve. If you noticed, we took the pneumatic actuator and pressure controller, and we kept and we put our electric actuator on our BA15L, and we kept the valve. So that really helps on the process side, and fairly easy way to do a quick retrofit. And also on the inlet choke, it was a Fisher E-body type choke, and we replaced that pneumatic actuator with our BA15L. So it was fairly straightforward retrofit on that side of things. For level control, you're looking at just replacing your displacer off your vessel with electric controller. And then also with level control, we have different options on that side of things with either 1-inch or 2-inch dump valves, with linear actuators or quarter turn type actuators. And then power requirements, when you're looking at replacing some of your pneumatic devices and you're adding electric controls, you're going to have to look at your power requirements. You might have to add a few more solar panels and batteries. And then, of course, that'll add to your budget a little bit. And then are you also adding some chemical pump, electric chemical pump addition? So that's going to add some more of your power requirements and then also maybe some programming into your R2, your SCADA system. Okay, so your costs on your retrofitting could be anywhere from $5,000 all the way up to about $20,000, $30,000, depending what type of instrumentation you're changing and how much power you're adding to the system. Okay, we'll go through the greenfield side of things and new installs. Here in Alberta and in BC, we got regulations coming up in 2021, British Columbia. Any kind of greenfield install, new installs, you won't not be able to use any kind of, you got to control your venting, which that means you can't vent any pneumatic devices using fuel gas. So you'll have to use either electric controls or any kind of instrumentation, air instrument for compressors. It's here in Alberta. Here, same thing. It's in 2022. Sorry. And again, you're going to have to go with any kind of collection with getting your methane, or if again, electric controls or instrument air compressors. So a big part of doing electric controls, I guess, is especially on new installs, you don't get that issues with bad fuel gas with wet or foamy or sour fuel gas. So it makes it a lot simple like that. It keeps things nice and clean, and a lot less maintenance there for your operators. Again, everything's low power. This site here was an oil well site that we installed all our new electric controls with a 5-6 header oil separator with some bypass valves, and you can see it's all tech cable, all electric, so a lot less tubing that you have to install. And on the budget side of things, it's a lot cleaner and a lot cheaper. You're not buying any kind of pneumatic devices, so you're just buying some electric controls, and your power budget, if you got chemical pumps, are all included into the power budget with your RTU system. And again, you're getting a lot more information back, your feedback from all your electric controls, and then well site optimization such as artificial intelligence mix is going to be a next future of our well site systems here in Canada and North America. I just want to touch a little bit on our R&D side of things, what we've been working on over the last few years. We ended up getting a grant through ERA, Emissions Reductions Alberta, and also SDTC, federal government, for a fuel cell that we've been testing over the last few years. And also some of our other equipment that we've been developing with our electric patent, our Vapour patent electric ESD that we've been working on over the last few years. And hopefully we'll be doing some beta testing here in the near future. And then also our fail-safe modules with where we think we're pretty excited about getting these completed. They're in CSA at the moment, and looks like we'll be on the market within the next 2-3 months. I guess one of the biggest reasons why we developed these modules, one of the main issues with when you're doing all electrical on oil gas separator controls is how to shut down safely when you lose your power or you lose your main fuse from your RTU. So most electric actuators do not have a backup power, so the valve will typically fail in the last position. So what these modules do, the Vapour fail-safe controller solves this monitoring system power. What it does, we can handle up to 9 actuators, and as soon as it sees that we lost our main power, someone steals the batteries or we lose any kind of RTU communication, we start shutting the well site. So it's all fail-safe, so either the valves will be opening or closing on the fail-safe side of things. And these modules are all going to be Class 1 Div 2. They're all DIN rail mounts, so they're designed to sit into your RTU cabinet. And again, designed for very low power consumption on that side of things. 50-watt fuel cell. This is the 50-watt fuel cell that we've been working on through the grant over the last few years. We've done some installs throughout Alberta. And this fuel cell runs, it's a safe cell. Our partner there is Safe Cell out of the US. It runs on industrial type methanol. So it's very efficient. It pretty well, if it's running 50 watts in the 24-hour total, it will use about 1 liter of methanol a day. So it's very efficient on that side of things. And we've used it with a hybrid type system. So we'll run solar panels and batteries, and then if we require more power, we could add this fuel cell to the system. And then with our Vapour electric controls, that was part of the research and development side of things too, adding all that, reducing the methane emissions here to going with all electric controls. And some of our Canadian partners, That was NEL Resources, Modern Resources, Synovus Energy, Repsol Oil and Gas, and then Husky Energy was our consortium partners for this grant that we received from ERA and SETC. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Henry. That was great, and that was well timed too. Great job. And next up is Dallas Rosevear, Chief Business Development Officer with Clear Rush Co., formerly Black Gold Rush Industries. They develop enclosed combustors here in Alberta with implementation globally. So Dallas, off to you.
Dallas, you'll want to unmute yourself.
There we go.
There we go.
There, perfect. So really why we're here today, we all know and we've all seen, news headlines and what's happening out there today, and really the global energy sector. We must start producing energy, whether it be oil and gas, whether it be agriculture, in an environmentally sustainable manner, and start transitioning into this low carbon economy. So we're really here to identify and promote new technologies that are in the field working, highlight the applications on what they're doing, how they're being used, and then going to learn how these new technologies can actually provide your return on investment, similar to the way Henry was discussing with the carbon credit markets. So that's really why I think everybody's here. This slide here, we deal with CO2, and we talk about CO2 quite a bit, and we know that it's very difficult and expensive to deal with. And I think that there's a lot of, low-hanging fruit or easy stuff out there to deal with, and focusing on air quality versus climate change is really is a positive step forward. And focusing on air quality in turn will actually equate to climate change, a positive for climate change. So that's really where Clear Rush Co. has focused their attention and their products on, is kind of lower volumes on the where there's a lot of units or a lot of sources that's venting low amounts, where it just doesn't make sense economically or environmentally to either conserve or tie that gas in. So that's really where Clear Rush Co. has focused their attention on. And then the return on investment for providing funding for continued R&D, new technology or today's technology, if it's adopted and used widely, that provides the income and the revenue generation for these companies to continue R&D onto the next and better things. So, sitting idly by versus implementing today's technologies is actually going to enhance tomorrow's technologies. So I think that's a pretty important point, rather than just sitting by and waiting for the next technology to come that's going to solve everything. So this next slide is this is Alberta, in Alberta. And when I talk about low-hanging fruit, it's just a single snapshot of a small area in the province of Alberta. All those dots represent well sites that you can see on the right-hand side of the page. Excuse me. Each one of these well sites, these storage tanks, vent atmosphere. So we can see the vast amount of methane that's being emitted in one small area, right? And I just took this area for an example, but these are all over the world. And if we can focus on this low volume vent gas, that has a huge dramatic effect on just the local air quality in that neighborhood, which, like I say, equates to the overall climate change conversation. So these are all small, uneconomical amounts of vent gas, but collectively, it's a massive amount of low-hanging fruit that we can deal with. And so some of the sources on these sites is you have your storage tank venting, which goes to the atmosphere, the casing gas, which comes up with the oil and separates out, which is vented to atmosphere. There could be pneumatic instruments, as Henri was touching on, vented to atmosphere, or compressor vent seals. So all these small sources really add up to a large, massive amount, and that's where Clear Rushco is really focused on. So what Clear Rushco does is we're a clean combustion technology company, which we've got a few different products, and really it's trying to eliminate that low-hanging fruit, giving operators or producers a real economical, effective tool that's easily deployable, easy to put in, and not really a big cost hindrance. So one of our main products, our core products, is the enclosed vapor combustors. We've been sending these basically internationally, a lot of stuff down in the United States, Albania, United Arab Emirates, India. And so the enclosed vapor combustors really, they get 99% total hydrocarbon destruction, all the way down to 1.5 ounces of pressure. So anything that's really low pressure, storage tanks, casing gas, pneumatics, that type of thing. Any uneconomical gas, which is usually vented to atmosphere, sent to a low pressure flare stack, is really where Clear Rushco fits in and cleanly combusts it. So at the end, there I said conservation is king. I mean, whenever we can conserve that gas and utilize it, get it into a pipeline, that's really the preferred method. But like I say, does it make sense to, you have 2,000-3,000 sites in an area like in that previous map? Does it make sense to run pipelines all over the country to collect a little bit of gas, put compressors in there to boost the pressures up? Environmentally, probably not. Economically, no, it doesn't. So being able to provide a tool that they can put within the well site, close spacing, and cleanly combust it is really is the one option, or is a really good option to handle that vent gas. So so here's what the different types of enclosed combustors look like. Basically cleanly combusting it to 99.99%. No visible flames, so your residents and your landowners are they're not seeing the flares and stuff at night. We can utilize the waste gas to operate the pilots that run in there. It's a small continuous pilot, so we use the waste gas that's on site to run them pilots. As well, we can use the heat that they produce to heat a source, a glycol source, which companies can then use the heat tracing to heat their lines and keep them from freezing during the winter here in Canada. So we can utilize that waste heat and do more with it. All the units have a solar power option, so there's no additional power or no additional fuel gas required in order to get those high destruction efficiencies. So really efficient and cost effective. The other one are all-in-one burners. So these come out just like in the top right-hand corner. Everything is pre-piped, pre-plumbed. So basically you're bolting it on, hooking up your power and hooking up your gas. The burners that we've came up with, you can see in the two colored photos at the bottom. The one on the right is our burner. The one on the left is your typical. And so you can see how much fuel gas or how much gas you're going to be using to heat your oil in your storage tanks. If you got to get your oil up to a certain temperature, you know, our burner is going to be a lot more efficient, and that's where that 80% efficiency versus typical burners of 60% efficiency comes in. So when you're using a ton more fuel gas, that's less gas that's going in your sales line, and more emissions that are being emitted. So really high efficiencies with the ACL burner. As well, we can route BTEXs, that's your benzene, toluene, xylenes. We can route them through our burner and actually combust them in the process heat. So really another way to get rid of some of your vent gas. And then we can use storage tank vapors or casing gas as the heat source or as the gas to heat it. So you're using your on-site gas to provide the heat you need to bring your oil up to temperature. There's one more here. Yeah, the rush power unit. This is really this is a neat unit. So this takes your waste gas and generates continuous 1,000 watts of power. One problem is it's just about too efficient because it only takes 11 meters cubed per day to generate that 1,000 continuous watts. So unlike a TEG unit generating power, it's not running all the time because it has an onboard battery storage system on it. And so it's only running when the power gets drawn down. But a really, really efficient Stirling engine technology. And so you can generate your power for SCADA or lighting or your BMS systems. So we could run the burner management systems on the combustors with the rush power. Like I say, using the on-site waste gas is just another benefit of, you know, utilizing what you have on site and not wasting it. So measurability. So one BGR 36 combustor is equal to 365 days equals 3,650 cars off the road. So it has a huge impact. This is one of them sites off of that map that I showed earlier. So when you look at, you know, thousands and thousands of sites in that area, you can see the impact of dealing with that low-hanging fruit that we were talking about, and ultimately leading to the overall conversation of climate change. You know, the return on investment portion of this is if we're leveraging the carbon credit market, you know, 2,450 tons of CO2 equivalent, and just be conservative at $20 a ton, you're looking at a $49,000 per year return on investment. So, you know, less than 1 year, your units are paid for, and then you're continuing to generate income with it on an ongoing basis. So those are the things that we really got to look at moving forward, and leveraging that carbon market or carbon credit market. So some of the benefits, you reduce emissions even in a low commodity price environment. You really high efficiencies. You're, as far as landowners, residents and stuff, you're eliminating all the odors in the area, any smoke, and really improving the air quality. Utilizing the gas on site to generate the process heat. So doing more with what you have. The enclosed vapor combustors, extremely low operating costs, virtually almost zero. Installation costs, we've designed these things to literally, some people may have seen the videos online on LinkedIn or whatnot, but a client in Saskatchewan, it was literally 10 minutes from unloading it off the trailer to firing the units up. So, installation costs are starting to really come down the way we've got them designed. And then I'm going to focus a little more on this return on investment versus operational costs. So typically, you know, before the carbon credit market, these things, they cost money. They cost companies money with no return. So being able to leverage or find these carbon credit markets is huge. There's companies out there like Modern West where they're providing third-party financing to companies. So really it costs the company nothing to purchase, install. They do a carbon credit split with the companies, similar to the pneumatic program that went out, where, you know, a company would purchase, like Modern West would purchase all the equipment. They pay for installation. It wouldn't cost the company anything. You know, once that equipment is paid for, then they do a carbon credit split with the company, and you have ongoing revenue. So it gets people back to work. It's reducing emissions, and it's not costing the companies anything. So it's a really good option to look at, and really encourage people to reach out and talk to Jackson and Modern West about that. And then, like I say, it's ongoing revenue. So it's, you know, now your emission reduction isn't costing you money, it's actually making you money. So it really something really to look at. So and that's about all I have. Yeah, we'll look forward to any questions that everybody may have, and moving from there.
Thanks a lot, Dallas. Great, another great presentation, folks. You have a couple options here to ask questions. You can raise your hand using the icon towards the bottom of your monitor, as well as the chat function as well. You could, if you're more comfortable, of course, just posting a question on the chat function. We'll filter through them. And why don't we? I've got certainly a couple questions for both these gentlemen, as collectively and individually. But James, do you have a question here to start?
Yeah, a suggestion maybe. Both Henri and Dallas talked about the market and the return on investment. I think the audience that we've got here would benefit from some history in terms of how that developed in Canada and in Alberta. And I think that's probably for you, Jackson, but maybe all three of you talked about it. Just so we've talked about quantification with this audience to some degree. Now we're talking about technology. We will talk about markets in another session. We will talk about policy in another session, but certainly these are all integrated, and the success of the development of these technologies is, you know, predicated on the intersection of all of those. So if you could give some background history, that'd be good.
Sure, I can start with broadly the story from Canada and certainly the oil and gas jurisdictions out west, and perhaps if Dallas or Henri have something more specific to their recent experiences on the evolution of the market, they can chime in as well. You know, I guess it was back in 2007 when the carbon markets in British Columbia and Alberta were designed, and implementation really, I believe, started up in earnest in 2008. So there's a lot of familiarity with carbon offset credits. Now, these offset credits, many of you know, are generated when you reduce your emissions through a project type that's accepted within the compliance system. So there's a set of project types that have protocol documents developed for them. And if you implement one of those projects and complete the quantification in line with the methodologies prescribed in those documents, then you can generate credits. Now, the markets from a demand side have different drivers and have had different drivers. In British Columbia, the government was the primary buyer. In Alberta, it was the large emitters. And there's been a slight evolution in that as regulations have evolved, but the reductions that generate credits also need to be beyond compliance, which is an increasing factor as regulations get implemented here in the coming years. So the systems, the carbon offset credits, they can be used multiple different ways, but it's a revenue source for the non-regulated producers that are implementing these projects, as Dallas mentioned quite well. So the system has been around for a long time. To say it's been underutilized or overutilized or just right, I guess everybody will have their view on it. I think the opportunities are very abundant in this carbon offset space, and continue to do so. Dallas and Henri, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you pretty well went through it all.
I think so. I'll just add a little bit as far as the Alberta side. Where we're looking at is there's a protocol out, the solution gas offset protocol, and that was really the driver of the pneumatics, switching out the pneumatics for no bleed or electric, like what Calscan offers. And it was a really successful program. And I guess with everything that's been happening this last year, as far as, you know, COVID, the oil price drops, and just industry activity, you know, the regulations aren't going anywhere. And so the Alberta government wanted to, they wanted suggestions on how to put people back to work, how to get things moving again. And I said that clean combustion needed to be included or part of that solution gas offset protocol. If that's the case, and we could roll these out like the pneumatic system, you're going to put people to work. Companies are not, it's not going to cost companies money, and it's going to reduce emissions all at the same time. It's a win-win-win. And so the working with Alberta government on it, they've been you know, really proactively pushing it, making the changes that we need, and I think we're going to see it very soon. You know, it just makes sense, and there's a lot of, you know, let's just take agriculture carbon credits that are going to go away here pretty soon. There's a huge demand internationally for carbon credits, and there just isn't enough of them available out there. So that's the other side of it, is allowing or creating more credits that are able to be purchased.
I guess the last thing I would add is building off of some of the things that both Henri and Dallas addressed, is what you find is one of the benefits of pursuing the carbon market and credit generation is that you get a good understanding for the data tracking requirements. And that includes the measurement requirements, as Henri had described in his presentation, as well as the data systems that need to be in place to be tracking the data and reporting out. As Dallas mentioned, there's reporting requirements that come with the implementation of carbon offset projects. And it's proven to be, for the early actors in the carbon market, it's proven to be a benefit to them because they got an early understanding of the data systems, data tracking, the measurement, the inventories that they need to be collecting and monitoring on an ongoing basis in order to capitalize and generate those carbon credits. So it's an encouraging piece that can often be forgotten because you know, producers are rightfully chasing the dollars associated with offset sales, but there's an internal benefit here, and that is really building strong systems internally. So it looks like we might have a question here. We've got one for Dallas. It says, are the EVCs appropriate for offshore oil platform use, Dallas?
Yeah, they're, I guess as long as the nice part is with the way that we've designed them, they're safe in a reduced spacing scenario. So basically we look at in Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Western Canada, a 10-meter spacing from a vent source. On an offshore oil platform, we're going to be looking, there's going to be some redesign or some specific design as far as what the unit actually looks like in the room we have. But I looked at, when I was over in Abu Dhabi, we looked at a lot of offshore oil platforms, the DOS Islands, et cetera, over there. And definitely it just really comes down to your volumes and your pressures and what the source is. So those are really the three things that I need to look at in order to design something is, what is the pressure, what's the volume, and what's the gas analysis, or how hot is the gas. So, but yeah, they can be used really anywhere there's vent gas.
Thanks. Here's a question for both of you guys, and Henri, we can start with you and then move to Dallas after. Both of you have installations in multiple jurisdictions, whether that's various provinces in Canada or other countries, as you've both addressed. Have there been different challenges in those jurisdictions for implementing your technologies, or is there a common challenge in that it costs money and maybe the picture isn't clear on what the short and long-term benefits are? Is there anything you can address on installations in various jurisdictions?
Yeah, good question there, Jackson. I think for what we've been doing, especially on our engineering side, and making sure that we're designing our electric actuators for easy install on type of valves that they've been using over the last 50 years on these separator packages. I think that's making it a little easier for us. We did struggle with that, Jackson, over years ago, and over the last 2-3 years, we're really it's coming together that it's an easy retrofit now. Like we feel pretty confident that we can use a 2-inch D-body 2500 ANSI choke and put our electric actuator on. And we got different models that we higher torque ones or thrust. And then also different models for different price range. So I think it's coming together. Again, it's something new for the oil industry. A change in the industry doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time. You look at going back in the 90s, we were still running chart recorders and PD meters on our liquid. So it took, by the time we started using SCADA and RTUs and electric flow computers, it took 20 some years to change all that. So it's going to be the same. Hopefully it'll be a little quicker, but again, cost-wise, fabrication, inventory, all that is going to be all part of this, and it's slowly changing, but it's going to take some time. There's no doubt.
Thanks, Henri. Dallas, any comments on the challenges or commonalities in different jurisdictions?
Challenges has been really Alberta or Western Canada, just with our safety standards. That was the really hard part for our equipment, was trying to design a piece of equipment has fire in it to sit close to your existing equipment. Putting a flare, having to space it out, 50 meters away from the site, puts it out in the middle of the farmer's field, and he doesn't want to drive around it, nor do you want a truckers hauling oil to drive around it. So that was really the challenging part. But the AER and the regulators and the producers, they've all been instrumental on helping us design what we need to design to meet their needs. So, but I mean, the commonality is this vent gas or this low-hanging fruit is everywhere. I mean, you can see it in the United States with the amount of storage tanks in the US. You know, that still remains one of our biggest markets. You know, 65% of our revenue is from the United States still. So the commonalities are there. It's you know, it's low pressure vent gas that's being emitted to atmosphere. And it was just coming up with the right design to cleanly combust that at them low pressures, and then you know, being able to get it close to your equipment. And then the next thing is, how do you do more with what you have? So using that waste heat to heat your glycol, heat your heat trace, generate power with that heat, right? That's the next challenge. And that's where I say implementing these technologies now allows companies to continue the R&D and make a better widget down the road, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very great place to end our dialogue here. I think, Dallas, that comment is just so critical for folks to understand. Implementing today's technologies will enhance the next wave of technologies. Act now, learn, grow, and you know, we grow businesses, we reduce emissions, we build a more resilient industry, and probably nothing more important in that space than strong partnerships, including this one with the GMI. So thank you, GMI, for having us today, and thanks everyone who attended. James, off to you.
Thanks, Jackson, and thanks to the three of you, Dallas, Henri, Jackson, for putting together this kind of quick view into the world that's going on right now, and the solutions that are out there. I'm not getting control right now. I don't know if you've got it still, Jackson. It won't give it to me, but or Jamie.
No, I think
no. Not that it's important. There's a kind of only one slide left. But really, as we close this in the last minute, it's about drawing attention to the fact that we're going to continue with these meetings. Like I said earlier, we'll talk some more about policy. We'll talk some more about markets, and I think we'll have opportunities to talk more about these and other solutions. So I'll draw attention to the Global Methane Challenge that's managed through the GMI. You're seeing continued examples of solutions, and interested parties join that, governments, producers, solution providers. So I encourage you to look on through the website to see who's there, and we'll use that as a resource for us going forward. It was a one-year program. It continues because of its success. So please have a look on the website. I didn't say it out loud, but I know that there was a message that popped up earlier asking people who signed in to identify themselves on the form that was available in the chat box. So if you could do that, if you're still online, that would be helpful. The last piece, I think, for me is to say that the next meeting that we're having probably won't have a technical element to it. It'll be the annual general meeting for the subcommittee, but I invite all of you to be a part of that. The subcommittee is a diverse organization that's here to act as a bridge between these different parties. So looking at solutions and finding ways to implement them, looking at government perspectives, looking at producer perspectives. So everybody's welcome to that, and we'll be setting out our agenda for the next few years as we talk through that meeting. Thanks very much, everybody, presenters, participants. This has been another great meeting. Everything will be available through the website. The presentations will be posted there. Stay tuned and look for more emails from us. Thanks very much.
James.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.